Hi, my name is Linda Forand and welcome to Animal Adventures! Today, we're going to learn all about birds of prey, how to take care of them, what to do if you find an injured one, all sorts of interesting things. So come along with me as we go and talk all about birds of prey with Tom Riccardi. Let's go!
He's permanently injured. This bird has problems with both wings, and some of the birds that come in, if they can't be released back to the wild, I try to tame them down as best as possible and use it for education. I never consider them my pets. I never name them. I think it's a disservice to wildlife to go into a classroom with an owl like this, for instance, and say this is Hootie the owl, or give them some silly name. I just call them exactly what they are. This is the American great horned owl. Holding onto the wire, breaking his feathers and causing more damage. It'd be kind of silly if I took a bird in for rehabilitation. Then when I was ready to be released him, all the feathers were broken because of the wire. So this type of enclosure, depending on the bird, if the bird is very active, I'll keep them in this type of enclosure. Now these are only used for the birds I use for educational programs. Second smallest owl, that's the eastern screech owl. This is the red phase. They have two color phases, the red and the gray. The red is not as common as the gray phase. If you look at the screech owl, you saw the great horned owl a few minutes ago. If you look at the screech owl, basically it looks like a miniature great horned owl. And believe it or not, I've had this bird 14 years. He's really an old timer. And he's another bird. This bird is more of a southwestern species. They come from Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, and a lot of these birds were brought into this area for the sport of falconry. This is the American kestrel, and you can tell the male from the female with this bird by the color. That's a little male you're looking at. You see those gray shoulders and wings? That's the male. If that was a female, her body would be all kind of a chocolate brown color. Unfortunately, the kestrel, and we used to call this a sparrowhawk years ago, the kestrel is in trouble today because of loss of habitat. And the state is really concerned about its ability to survive in this area because of no nesting places. And right now they're putting up a lot of nesting boxes to encourage this bird to come back. They are a cavity nester, which means they do not build a nest. They find a hole in the tree or a bird box. The bird hit a power line and lost the use of one wing, never healed properly. So she can't fly, and the male, he's back in the corner, he can't fly either. So you notice there's no top on the cage because they can't get off the ground more than a couple of feet. But it's a pair of birds I use for captive breeding, and hopefully they'll lay eggs in the spring, which they do, and I'll release the young back to the wild. So this has been a very productive pair of bald eagles. Of course, we know this is the national bird, And here in Massachusetts, we lost the nesting birds until about 1985 when they started to come back, because some of the birds were lost because of pesticide contamination. But the population is doing really quite well right now.
I don't think people, they know it's a national bird and that, but I don't think they have like a lot of information about the eagle's habitat, when they feed, what they feed on, how many times a year do they breed, how many chicks.
Right. Well, to answer that question, once a year, they breed once a year, and they usually have 1 to 3 eggs, and usually 2. But sometimes in the wild, only 1 or 2 chicks survive because of the food supply. And the bald eagle, and incidentally, it's called a bald eagle because it's white head. Bald means white, and you can see he's not bald. But they will hunt fish, other birds and animals, but their main diet is fish. But in the wintertime, when the rivers and lakes freeze up, they'll resort to catching ducks, and even carrion. They'll feed on dead things. I picked up several over the years that were hit by automobiles on the side of the road because they were feeding on carrion.
What kind of bird is this?
That's an immature bald eagle. That's about, about a 4-year-old bird.
That's what an immature bald eagle
Yep.
looks like. Oh, no, that is awesome.
You can see the white starting to come into the head
Yeah.
and the tail. Now next year, he should be solid white on the head and tail.
So this is a red-tailed hawk?
Yeah, that's an immature. Doesn't have a red tail yet.
And how long does it take for a red-tailed hawk to get?
1 year.
1 year.
The first year, so that bird was born this year. Next year, its tail will start to change to red color.
So what's his injury?
His wing, his left wing. It looks like it's not broken. It might be just a muscle pull. But like I said, he just came in yesterday. I haven't really had a chance to really look at him yet.
So do you have a vet that can take a look at him?
Yeah, I have a Dr. Schmidt in Deerfield, who is really a great guy, and he helps me with a lot of the birds. The federal government can declare an animal endangered. I'll take it off the endangered species list, but a state can keep it on if they feel that their population in a given state is not what it should be. And there's 3 categories that the guidelines for the federal government. The first is birds of special concern. That's the lowest category. Well, boy, you better watch them because it looks like there's going to be trouble. The second category is, endangered is the first, and then special concern is the last, and in the middle, we call threatened. So you go from one category, goes to threatened, and then to endangered, which is the top priority. That's what the birds are really protected. So special concern, threatened.
Tell me about barred owls, because I know that they're native around here, or you can really find them around here.
They're one of the most common of all the owls, and they're most owls have tufts of feathers on the top of the head, but the barred owl is unique. It doesn't have any tufts. In fact, it has a real docile looking face. When you look at them, it doesn't really look like a predator. But they're common. The only problem is they like to hunt along the edge of the highway. And I get many of them hit by cars. In fact, I had a call last night, another owl that was hit.
And so they feed at night, like on mice?
Mice, yeah. Things along the edge of the road. There's one here sleeping right in the sunshine.
And then, are the barred owls throughout the United States, or?
Yeah, they're a common species all through the country. There's a couple of subspecies. You sometimes hear about the spotted owl out on the West Coast. That's an endangered species. Well, that's just kind of a different type of barred owl, but they're pretty rare. But you'll find these all around. They're a real woodland hawk. Woodland owl.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the heavy woods.
Ah, okay. And then, like, say, and they nest in the tree, or?
Yep. They're just like the kestrel. You'll see that one's got a little hole in the wall I built for them. They like to go inside a cavity and nest.
And then when do they have their chicks?
Early spring. The great horned owl is probably one of the earliest nesters, usually January, February. And this bird a little later. They tend to have a good large brood of young, 4 or 5 young. And that's kind of rare for such a large bird.
Vultures. What kind of habitat do you normally see vultures? And are they throughout this? I know you have vultures sort of like down in the southwest,
Yep.
but you find them here?
Yeah, this is a bird that's found down in the south. But because of global warming, a lot of the birds are coming north. The bird we have around here, the common one, is the turkey vulture. It's got the red head, but the black vulture you very rarely see. And I see 1 or 2 a year. So this bird is a bird that's been here for quite a while. It's doing real well right now. And you can see he's waiting. He thought I had something for him to eat.
Because he's not native here, are you going to be able to release him, or is he going to stay here?
Yep. They'll drift south. They'll go back south when it gets real cold.
And then the reason why they don't have feathers on their head, is that because of the way they feed?
Yeah, that's an adaptation for a scavenger. Stick their head right into their food, and also it keeps it clean. Even the legs are different. If you look at the legs of a vulture, they're more chicken-like. But even the vultures, when they feed on carrion, when they have to go, their droppings run down their legs to kill the bacteria on their feet. That's just something a vulture does.
Wow, now I never knew. That's a cool fact.
It is, yeah. Hey. Flesh, so they can really give you a heck of a bite. You'll notice his feet are not they're not like a hawk or an owl. They don't have big talons. They're more of a walking foot, like a chicken or a pheasant, because they're scavengers. They don't need big, powerful talons. But the beak is what they use for tearing their food.
Yeah, it's able to get in there and really tear the flesh apart, and that's what they need. They don't, because they're not going to. Do they ever, like? Usually they eat like what's there, but then do they ever carry it to the nest or anything like that?
Yes, they do. But unlike other birds, they carry it in their stomach. So they'll swallow the food. They'll go to the nest and they'll regurgitate the food into the nest.
Oh, now there's another interesting fact. Who knew?
Like I said, they're a bird unto themselves. They're quite different than most birds.
So what do you feed the bird here? Since
I feed them basically the same thing I feed all the other birds. I feed them fish, mice, things like that. So he gets the same diet as the other birds. Sometimes if I get, a lot of the local farmers will donate chickens and things. And if I get a chicken that's maybe not very palatable for a hawk or an eagle, I'll give it to the vulture because they eat carrion, so that their digestive system is much stronger, so they can swallow and eat food that's not very good for the other birds.
So when are you going to release this one?
You know, I'm going to probably hold this guy till spring. It's getting too late in the year to release her.
So how did you end up getting this one?
Some woman found it in her backyard with an injured wing. She called. And here he is. That's a peregrine.
Wait a minute.
Oh, he's letting you stay. I don't know if you can notice the coloration, but he's getting them gray feathers in. That's a juvenile bird going into the adult plumage. And that bird was hit by an airplane. And what you can't see is he's got only one wing. But he's doing quite well. And I use that bird. I take him to schools in different places. And he's got a pretty nice personality. Peregrine falcons are usually pretty high-strung, but this guy has got, as I said, a pretty nice personality.
Now, where would you normally see peregrine falcons?
They nest on cliff sides. In fact, they even have them in the city areas. We've got a nesting pair in Springfield, Worcester, Boston. But they're bird hunters. They're fast. They catch mostly birds.
And then, so where, like as far as what states, I mean, would you find peregrine falcons?
States?
Well, I mean, yeah, do you find them like throughout North America?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, there's several different species throughout North America. But they're really coming back. This is the bird that was really endangered for a long time because of pesticide contamination. But they're doing really well right now. They do not build a nest either. They've taken up residence, as I said, in a lot of cities, and they nest on the window ledges of some of the skyscrapers. This is a silver gerfalcon, and they come in 3 different colors. Black, silver like this one, and a white phase, which I have here. I'll show you in a minute.
And what is their native habitat? Do you usually find them around here?
Very rarely. You'll see them in the fall. In the wintertime, some will migrate into New England, but very rarely. They're more of a bird up in the northern provinces of Canada, way up in Alaska also.
And they migrate?
Some of them will, depending on the food supply. Just like the snowy owls will come down when the food supply is low. They'll come into the area and stay for the winter months and head back when the weather gets warm. Find them once in a while. Like I said, very, very rarely. This particular bird was born in captivity. It was a bird that was produced, so it's not really a wild bird.
So tell me about a bird's neck, because you can see see how the bird is like turning his like neck all around.
Yeah, he's trying to get a better look at things. He's doing right now. It looks kind of comical, but there's a reason. Turn his head, he wants to see better. If I hid my hand up, you can see what he's doing. Turning his head completely around to try to look at me better.
Mm-hmm. So that's the white face?
This is the white.
The
Now you notice the difference in size. This is a male, and the one you just looked at was a female. So there's a big difference in the size, the female being much larger than the male. And this is the white one. He's not a real pure white. Some of them are really, really white with a few black flecks in their feathers. But this guy is kind of in between. Because daylight hunters, nighttime they're sleeping, no real problem. But some of them do blend in.
And then I thought it was on, can you say about the owl, about the camouflage?
Owls will always look like camouflage. They've got that molted brown plumage, ear tufts. So when they're sitting on a branch or in a tree, they look just like an old broken branch.
And that's so that they don't get harassed during the daytime by the other birds.
Right. You take an owl out in the daytime and put it out where the crows can see it, and boy, I'll tell you, they'll chase them all around. They'll harass them all day. Crows do not like owls.
And then this is a black hawk, and then it has, what color tail?
It's kind of a rusty red tail, just like a red-tailed hawk. The rest of the body's that solid black, But when he opens his wings, he's got a lot of silver color in the wings that you can't see when he's perched like this.
So these birds up on the higher perch are ready to be released. So
Yes.
when would you be releasing them? Like next month or so?
Yeah, they'll be gone before the end of October. I'll just wait for a good opportunity, a good day, and for instance, if I've got a program, like I said before, I was up at Mount Tom Saturday. I took a bird with me then and released it. So usually I'll take a bird when I do a program. After the program, we'll release the bird if it's a good location.
And good location is a good habitat for it to be able to get food, feel comfortable in, and survive.
No automobiles, no power lines, no people. So if I've got a good rural area that I'm speaking at, I'll take a bird with me and release them.
Because it's critical when you release them to release them in the correct spot, correct?
Yeah.
Because the whole purpose is for their survival.
Yes, sir. That's for sure.
And you feed these guys mice?
Yep, I think they're going to go pretty good. And you can see they're very active, which I like to see. And also they're flying good. They're using their wings. And so I have no doubt that they'll do fine in the wild.
Because that's one other consideration is sort of like when to release them.
Right.
And be able to see them flying back and forth like this, like you said, that means they would be able to fly good, to be able to get away from other prey, to be able to get food,
yep.
Stuff like that.
No sense releasing a bird and he's just going to die if I don't release him when he's ready or not ready. He's not going to survive. So I have to make really sure to myself, make that decision to release him. And another good thing is when I see him like this, when they're really nervous around people, perfect sign. They're not acting tame. When they go, they're going to just keep away from people. And
what happens is, for their survival, you want them to be able to act the way they normally would in the wild, to keep that. Because if they eat a certain food, you want them to be able to keep eating that certain food. To be able to hunt for that certain food. So if you kind of sort of like tame them, I guess what you could say, by leaving food out and stuff like that.
Right.
If you don't do that, then what happens is like they kind of lost their wildness to be, they got so used to you feeding them.
Yes. Just like the great horned owl and the Harris hawk that I had in my hand before. I wouldn't want the birds to be like that if they were going to be released. They're just dependent on me. And they're great for educational programs because I can handle them, I can manage them in a classroom. But a bird like this, really wild, that's what I'm looking for. So when that bird flies off, I know he's going to do what wild hawks do. He's not going to be dependent on me.
So tell me, what is your environmental tip for the day?
My environmental tip for the day. I always say if you find a young animal, my environmental tip for the day would be, if you care, leave it there.